Hello, I want to welcome everybody to our webinar today on materiality. I apologize for a slight delay here. We had some technical difficulties, and we've got those worked out now. So I'm Tad Radzinski, and I'll be presenting on the webinar. And the focus will be on materiality, prioritizing sustainability in your strategic business plan. And this follows the December blog series that we've done on corporate responsibility and how it fits in your organization, as well as creating sustainability goals that support your business strategy. These two blogs basically laid some foundation work for today's webinar, and we will be delving into these topics in more detail today. And I do appreciate all of you attending, and I appreciate everybody that's been following the blog and providing questions and comments, which helps us to develop these series that we've been putting together here. And one thing that I want to talk about in the world of materiality is this is a fairly new concept in the world of sustainability. There's not a lot of standards developed on this yet. There's some that are in development, but many companies that have established sustainability programs and have them in place for a number of years have predominantly focused on their operational goals and organizational goals, and have not done a lot with really assessing the market or assessing what stakeholders are really interested in. And materiality definitely provides the ability for companies to start to consider many more aspects than just operational. So this materiality aspect is really critical for companies that are just starting out, but it's also really critical for companies that have an established program and are looking to go to their next generation sustainability goals. I was actually on a call today with a gentleman who's done a really good job of attacking many of his operational goals, and they're hitting a wall right now where they've achieved many of the aspects around energy, water, and waste, and they need to know where they go next because they've implemented a lot of the low-hanging fruit and capital that they can do, and now they need to move on to the next generation. So materiality definitely allows you to do that. And if we think about it, the way materiality is defined in the world of sustainability is those topics that have a direct or indirect impact on an organization's ability to create, preserve, or erode economic, environmental, and social value for itself, its stakeholders, and society at large. So that's kind of the complex definition, but in reality, the way I look at this is, materiality is really what is essential to your business strategy and long-term sustainability of your organization. And as always, we have to consider the triple bottom line when we're developing a sustainability program, looking at people, planet, profit, what's driving the business, what's important to the organization. And the key to this also is really understanding the fact that many organizations, almost every organization is different, and what's material to one company may not be material to another. And when you're doing these assessments of materiality, you have to really ask yourself what is really critical to your business strategy, what's critical to the long-term sustainability and the competitive aspects of your organization. And you can ask yourself things like, what resources are you reliant on? If you're a manufacturer and there's going to be certain resources that are critical to you, like oil or fossil fuels or a certain type of chemical or rare earth elements, and it's important to really understand what those are. Also, what's important and vital to your business, what's critical to your stakeholders, and this is where this materiality analysis and assessment really comes in, is really understanding not just what's important to your organization, but what's important to your stakeholders as well. And these material aspects can be everything from people, materials, capital. There's a lot of different things to consider here, and it really is a balancing act. If you think about it, for those of you on the phone that have sustainability programs and you have some goals you've been working towards, how are things going with that? Are you coming to the end of that, phase of your sustainability program where you've achieved your goals, or you're very close to your targets, and you're trying to decide where you go next, and constantly evaluating the opportunities to evolve your sustainability program and really implement this and make it part of your business strategy is really, really critical. And one way to do that is to understand what key stakeholders really care about, because it's really great if you have a multitude of goals that you're focused on, but if your stakeholders, it's not important to them, then it's not going to help you optimize your business strategy. This is a slide we've talked about in the blogs, and if you think about it, stakeholders vary greatly among different organizations. You know, if you're a publicly traded company, you're going to have different stakeholders than, you know, a small organization that might be, you know, only have a few employees. And when you look at stakeholders, one of the most important stakeholders to consider when you're doing your materiality assessment is really management. You know, is sustainability, these are various things on their radar? Are they concerned about, you know, reducing the environmental footprint of the organization? Or do they even care about what are the social aspects and what are the connections? We've worked with companies where management is fully engaged and they really get it and they want to push this, but I would imagine that some of you on the phone are battling with trying to educate management and get them interested in a sustainability program. And doing a materiality assessment is really good because you can understand what their thinking and concerns are. And if this is something that's not even on the radar, then you have a lot of work to do. But if they do have some awareness, then it's important to understand that. And then by evaluating other stakeholders such as customers, employees, investors, you know, if you're regulated by a government agency, understanding what's important to them, all of that information is going to help you develop your overall sustainability strategy based on the input you're going to get from these stakeholders. And that is a very key piece of this whole analysis that you'll be doing. And now I want to talk a little bit about establishing a materiality process or a framework or conducting an assessment. And if you look at the top two bullets here, conducting a sustainability assessment and benchmarking operations, I put these in here because this is something that if you're an organization that doesn't really have a sustainability program and you haven't really pulled together any data, you're not clear on, you know, how much energy, water, waste, what your carbon footprint is, training hours for employees, you don't know any of that information, it's pretty important to get some of that pulled together for your particular operation and organization so you can at least use that as part of the data analysis when you're doing your materiality assessment. If you are an organization, though, that does have a established sustainability program, you know, where you've got formal goals and different things like that, then what you'll need to do is, especially if you're coming at the end of these goals, you know, where you're pretty much meeting them and you're trying to decide where to go next, it's very critical to really understand what's going on in the market. As we all know, sustainability is constantly evolving in the marketplace, and there's a lot of different things occurring in regard to best practices. There's different reporting schemes. There's all kinds of different things always evolving. I mean, if you subscribe to any information on the internet, you're always seeing information coming out from Sustainable Brands or Green Biz on what different companies are doing in all aspects of sustainability. So in order to do an effective materiality assessment, you really need to understand these trends and market drivers. So looking at what's going on in your particular industry and seeing what are best practices, evaluating customer requirements. And one way to understand this is if you are a company that's getting sustainability questionnaires or you're getting calls from people you supply to and they want to know what you're doing as an organization, that's a great indication that to give you an idea of what is important to the various companies that you're serving. Also, it's critical to look at the competitive landscape. If you're competing with different organizations and they have a sustainability initiative or they're doing different things that they're advertising and putting out to the world, it's really important to know that because you need to know what you're up against. And that's a great thing about doing the materiality assessment. It allows you to understand the landscape, understand what's going on in your own organization, and then based on doing that initial analysis, it gives you the ability to say, okay, the next thing we want to do is really get some essential feedback on where we go next. And that usually involves conducting some type of stakeholder assessment. And that can involve doing questionnaires, interviews. This can be done internally, or you can hire a third party to do that and to collect data and information on, you know, what is really critical to your stakeholders, whether it's management, whether it's the customers, whether it's your employees, really understanding what's going on and getting that information. So then you can take all that. So now you've got your information together on what's going on within your internal operations. You know what's going on in the market, and then you've gotten feedback from various stakeholders and input. And the next step is to kind of evaluate those, prioritize that, and that's typically done in what we call a materiality matrix. And in that matrix, you're basically going to analyze what's important to you as an organization, what's important to your stakeholders. Next step in the process after you do that, you would then prioritize those things that are material to your organization as well as your stakeholders, and then you develop a program and you implement it, you measure, and you report. And that is an ongoing process, as we all know. So I talked about the materiality matrix, and I'd like to show an example of one of them. This is actually published by Nestle, and I actually like the way they present this because it's very simple, and for all the materiality assessments that we've done in our organization, we typically present these in a manner that we can present the information very simply. It allows for good decision making, and then it helps also with prioritization of what aspects are going to be critical to your organization. So looking at this, if you look on this axis, increasing concern to stakeholders, these are the things that are important to stakeholders as you go up the bar, and increasing or current impact on Nestle. So the idea here, if you remember the balance I showed back before, is really selecting these aspects that are going to be critical to both organizations. And as you can see up here, if you delve into more on what Nestle's doing, you can see here that these are the aspects that are not only critical to them, but also their stakeholders, and this is what Nestle is focused on right now as an organization. And you can see here there's everything from product safety through responsible sourcing, water usage, and then also packaging. We've looked at a lot of different companies that have done these materiality assessments, and packaging shows up quite often, as well as responsible sourcing, and then human rights and different things like this. So you can see there's quite a variety of aspects here, and these definitely go beyond traditional just operational goals where you're looking at reducing energy use or reducing carbon footprint or different things like this. So again, very important to understand what's important to each organization, to the stakeholders, and then really doing a balancing act on prioritizing what you will focus on as an organization. Next thing that's really important when you're doing materiality assessment is really understanding the aspect of how you're going to communicate this information. And that's all part of this analysis when you're doing the materiality assessment. Not only is it understanding what is material to your organization, but how best to communicate it to both internal and external stakeholders. And right now there is some activity with the IIRC, the SASB, and also the GRI with establishing some standards and guidance around the reporting of various material aspects, and that is actually being integrated within these standards. It's at the very beginning phases. However, if you're looking at trying to understand how this is done, there is some resources available. For example, SASB does have industry-based sustainability standards that they've developed for medical equipment and supplies as one example. And what's really interesting about this is this standard is, I recommend this as a guide for folks that are really trying to understand what's critical out in the marketplace for your particular sector. And as you can see, the material aspects that are identified here include product safety, ethical marketing, energy, water, and waste efficiency. And for those of you that were on the blog where we were talking about establishing sustainability goals based on your materiality assessment, energy, water, and waste are ones that I always recommend. I definitely feel that energy and carbon are really critical, and you'll probably see this end up in a lot of these standards as something that is continually focused on, especially since there's so much attention around global warming and climate change. But a lot of these other ones, as you can see here, are going to be very specific to this organization. And what's nice about this standard is it gives you what the material issues are, so it can help you as a cross comparison maybe of seeing, after you've done your materiality assessment in your organization, you can see, what standards are looking at, but then it also gives you very specific metrics to evaluate and track. And this is really useful when you're establishing goals and establishing a program and actually as part of your whole materiality assessment. So the next thing I want to show here is this is right out of the GRI's G4. This figure basically defines material aspects and boundary and gives an overview of the process. And this is similar to what I described earlier as far as the framework. First step is identification of the issues. Step 2 is prioritization. Step 3 would be validation. And that basically is done through looking at the aspects that are most critical, working within your stakeholder group, within your sustainability committee at your organization, and evaluating these materiality aspects that are going to be critical and then deciding what to focus on. And since GRI is all about standardization of reporting sustainability metrics, obviously their goal is to get the word out and have things reported, and you'll see more aspects around materiality built into the standards. There's actually some materiality checks that they have integrated in there. One last thing I want to kind of talk about is just an example of how materiality assessment could be utilized by an organization to establish goals. And I did talk about this briefly when we did the blog series around creating sustainability goals. And this is one for one of my companies, which is focused on sustainability consulting and different things like that, sustainable buildings and operations. And when we evaluated what was important to us as an organization, we knew that we wanted to reduce our carbon footprint. We definitely wanted to reduce waste. And then as our company and our sustainability initiatives evolved, we started reaching out to our various stakeholders. We talked to our clients. As we had established a good relationship with many clients, we really asked them what was important to them when it came down to having an organization like ours support them and provide the services that we do. And then we also really evaluated what was important to our employees. And as you can see here, the connected community and fun and inspiring place to work were driven largely by what we heard from both our employees, but also what was important to our customers. And we're an organization that really focuses on being creative and innovative, and we see that as a really critical piece, not only for our employees to want to have a place to work that really inspires them and fosters continuous learning, but also provides staying cutting edge for our clients. So that's just some examples of how we did our materiality assessment, and we created our own matrix. Again, we're a small company, but this type of strategy is important to apply to every organization, not just establish some goals to say, hey, we're going to reduce our carbon footprint by X, or we're going to do this, but to really look at what's going to be critical to your success. And I can tell you that by focusing on this, our people are really important to us, our clients are really important to us, and having the ability to integrate these right into our everyday operations has been very successful for us and has contributed to our ongoing growth of our company and hitting our goals, and it is a key piece of our business strategy. So when you're considering these things, you definitely want to think about what you can do from the perspective of bringing in these issues that are most important to you as an organization. So one thing that I do want to talk about is some next steps after you have done your materiality assessment, and this actually sets the stage for our January blog series. We're going to be talking about designing your corporate responsibility program. So you've got all your data, you've conducted your materiality assessment, and so what's next? You establish some goals based on that matrix, but then you can do things like, if you're a publicly traded company, you can link your materiality reporting to your financial reporting. And that's a common practice that's starting to happen, where environment, social, and governance aspects are really critical to investors, and we're starting to see more movement of that with big companies that are publicly traded. Also, have an ongoing stakeholder engagement program. It's great to do the stakeholder engagement and understand what's important to your customers or your employees or your management, but you want to continue to understand that and have an ongoing program where you're constantly checking in, getting updates, because like I said, sustainability is really evolving rapidly. And then really using this materiality assessment to help you establish your sustainability performance goals. Another aspect of this is effectively integrating into your company culture, and I've seen multiple companies that have very good sustainability programs when you look at them from a public perspective, but then you go to their offices and you ask employees what they know about it, and employees just don't get it, or they don't have any idea, or even companies that have simple goals like trying to recycle more, and employees just don't do it. So getting it into the company culture is going to be critical, and we'll be talking about that in January. And then ongoing evolution to foster innovation. And what I mean by this is understanding that sustainability is really a voluntary thing, and it's critical to your business strategy. It's important to think about how you can make changes, experiment with some goals. You might have to foster some innovation within your organization, and plan for making adjustment to those goals and constantly evolving, because this whole sustainability world and corporate responsibility world is definitely constantly evolving. And another critical aspect, which we highly recommend in every organization we work with, is education. Ongoing education on what's important and what can be utilized by your organization. So again, I know we got a little bit of a late start, and I apologize, but we have a few minutes here for questions, and we are looking at, I got about 6 or 8 questions here. I'll try to get through a couple of these. One question came in, and it said, engaging every stakeholder group is impossible for most companies. How should a company systematically prioritize stakeholders? Well, this particular question is a challenging one because, again, it's going to depend on the size of your organization. But what we typically do is we work on focusing in on the stakeholders that have the most impact on the overall business strategy. For example, if you're a manufacturer of something, it's going to be really critical that you understand, number one, what your management's expecting, but also what your customers want. And one thing that we'll do is, if you recall in the framework where I talked about evaluating what the market trends are, it's really important to understand what's important to the customer themselves. So, looking at their particular websites or interviewing them and understanding, what is most critical to them, looking at their materiality matrices also gives you a good idea what to do. So what I recommend is really trying to narrow down the scope of who's most important to you, and depending on the size of your organization, it could be, you could be under the watchful eye of NGOs or government regulators, and that may end up being more important to you than customers are. So it's really going to depend on your organization on how you prioritize that. The next question that came in is, is a copy of the presentation available? Yes, this presentation is being recorded, and everybody will get access to this. We actually have a number of people that weren't able to attend today because of the holidays, and they will be getting the links, but all of you will have access to this as well. The next topic is, how do you handle a situation on where what is important to the stakeholder is different from what is important to the company, and how do you address the different issues? That's a really good one, because when you do these materiality assessments, sometimes what's important to your company internally is what you perceive as the most important, and then what your customers or your stakeholders are asking for might be somewhat different, and they might not always align. And that's where the whole prioritization aspect comes in, of really analyzing what is material to your customers or your stakeholders, what is material to you. And then one thing that you usually find from that is, if there is something that's not on your radar but is on your customers or your stakeholders' radar, that is an important aspect that you want to communicate to management, because maybe it is something that needs to become more important for you. We have to consider that. And it's also important to remember that things that are material, sometimes they provide benefit to the company, sometimes they're a risk to the company, and all these things have to be evaluated. And in this particular case, like I said, every organization will be different, but we really use this whole assessment as a learning process to really understand where to take the organization and then work on the internal teams to select what is most critical. Okay, one more question. What are key topics to address in the stakeholder questionnaire or discussion, such things as transparency, improved performance, etc.? Well, typically when we assemble these questionnaires, we have a set group of questions that we'll typically ask, and those questionnaires are usually designed specifically based on what we've done, what we've seen in our research. If we do find that certain customers, for example, are really engaged in they find transparency very critical to them, then we'll make sure we definitely include those questions in there. If they're really interested in more in, are you focused on your carbon footprint, we'll validate those type of questions. But the questionnaires, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all, but the key topics will definitely be around what are material issues that we're seeing that's on their radar, what we think is critical to us as an organization. We typically ask, is this also important to you? And that definitely helps to narrow the scope down. So looks like we're at 12:31. Again, got a little bit of a late start, and I know many people are very busy, especially during this week. I do want to thank you all again for joining, and please continue to follow my blog. Please also continue to ask questions, because it's really helpful for me to establish this whole series, and the input we've been getting has been really good. And I just want to remind you all that the upcoming video and webinar series will be formulating the framework, designing your corporate responsibility program. And also keep in mind that we have this seminar that we're offering in Philadelphia on May 7th, 2014. And the whole blog series and the webinar series is really designed to help you gear up to go to this seminar on May 7th, which will really help you take your program to the next level. So anyway, hope all of you have great holidays. Thank you very much for joining, and I look forward to talking to you in the new year. Have a great holiday and have a happy new year. Thank you.